Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 646, and today's date is April 20th, 2015, and the title of this episode is Europe Backs Away from War as the U.S. Pushes for War. Let's get into the economic collapse news. Now, we know Greece, they are looking at different options. ECB getting very worried. And it appears right now that Greece might have taken the first steps very quietly in basically implementing capital controls. Greece issued a decree. Local governments obliged to transfer deposit reserves at central bank. So following the pension fund raid, the Greek government is now centralizing all Greek cash, citing an extremely urgent and unforeseen need. Yeah, they don't have the cash. That's basically what they're saying here. And we see that stunned Greeks are reacting to initial capital controls. A lot of them are rioting right now. A lot of them are pissed off. And you have to remember, these people have been under austerity. They've lost their jobs. They've lost their income. They lost their homes. Families have been out on the streets. When people have lost so much, there's nothing else to lose. And this government needs to be careful at this point in time in the drastic measures that they're taking, because these people are going to say, you know something, we've had it. We want to be separate and apart from the Eurozone. We don't care about the payments at this point in time. And we want a default. We'd like to go with Russia, with China. And we see that, as time goes on, this Greece debt crisis is really coming to an head right now. I mean, the Greek people, the Greek government, they're out of cash. They have nothing left to give to the central banking system. And it looks like at this point in time, it's time that they say, you know what, we're done with this. Now, the ECB is considering the possibility that Greece will default in their loans, and basically that they might have to restrict Greek banks, implement more capital controls, implement bail-ins, and put banks on a bank holiday. And we knew this could happen, and we see they're moving towards this at this point in time. Now, over the weekend, we understood that Russia said they were going to give an advance payment of $5 billion, and then they said, no, we're not going to give that amount for the pipeline. So there's a little bit of confusion right now. I don't know if this got out and they didn't want it to get out to help make the next payment. But it looks like Greece definitely has some type of deal with Russia. We understand that the drachma was printed up, ready to go. And we realize at this point in time, if there's any sign that Greece is not going to go along with what's going on with the ECB and the central banking system, they will shut down the banks. They will implement bail-ins. They are set up and ready for this. And of course, as we know, the IMF has been out there saying, we don't foresee a Greek exit. And every time we hear a government official or a central banker say this, we know it is completely the opposite. So they've been preparing for this. They know it's coming, and they're getting ready. And what's very interesting, as the head of Russian gas giant Gazprom, Alexei Miller, he's going to arrive in Athens tomorrow. And it seems that because of this, we're seeing that the EU's competition regulator plans to file formal antitrust charges against Russia's state-owned gas company. This reopens a suit from 2012 saying that it suspects the company of abusing its dominant position in those countries' natural gas supplies. It appears Europe is getting very nervous at this point in time. And of course, Alexei Miller is coming down to Greece to talk about the Turkish Stream pipeline. As we know, the pipeline is going to run through Turkey into Greece, and Greece is going to reap the economic benefits from this. It's going to create jobs. It's going to help the economy. And it's just going to help out in the long run. And of course, the EU does not like this, because if other countries see Greece in proving once they leave the Eurozone, the private Western central banking system, other countries are going to say, well, wait a minute. They're doing so well when they left and they wrote off the debt. We should do the same. And this is where the problem comes in. Now, here in the United States, what do we see? Well, we see the illusionary numbers from the U.S. government central bankers trying to keep everyone in the dark about what's really going on in the economy. But we know from everything that we talked about, things are really starting to fall apart. Now, with the student debt bubble, we're starting to see the same thing that happened in 2007. Now, back in 2007, it wasn't the student debt bubble, it was the real estate bubble with these subprime securities. And remember those credit rating agencies gave them a AAA, and everyone was like, okay, we're using for our retirement pension plans, and this is a great investment. And then what we saw in July of that year, all three rating agencies turned aggressively negative on subprime-related MBS, and their collective actions triggered a pre-crisis crisis. Earlier this month, Moody's put some $3 billion in student loan-backed ABS on review for downgrades, citing a risk of default. Very interesting. The reviews for downgrade are a result of the increased risk that the tranches will not fully pay down by their respective final maturity dates. Failure to repay a note on the final maturity date represents an event of a default under the trust documents. With nearly 1 in 3 loans in repayment delinquent by 30 days or more, and with $1 trillion in student debt outstanding, the situation could deteriorate materially going forward. Bill Ackman was out there saying, there is no way students are going to pay it back. How are they going to pay it back? They can't. They don't have the jobs. It's impossible. 80% of the college graduates cannot find work. Actually, the corporate media is starting to acknowledge this, saying, yeah, it's a little bit tough out there. People sending their resumes out, they can't find work. They only can find these low-paying part-time jobs. They're living with their parents. Most of them can barely make their student loan payments. Most of them are deferring them. Most of them are just letting them go because they have no other option. Now, the student debt now comprises 45% of federally owned financial assets. And this cannot be written off. Now, of course, Obama is trying to have this where you can declare bankruptcy and write off the debt, because the government would love to have this so they can bail out the student debt bubble. And this is why they are pushing that at this time. We see China. Again, they're making deals all over the globe. China is expected to invest about $34 billion into energy projects and nearly $12 billion into infrastructure, with the main part of the investment to focus on the so-called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. Beijing considers CPEC, a network of roads, railways, and pipelines, as an opportunity to expand its trade and transport links and boost economic influence across Central and South Asia. And we understand that China, Russia, they're spreading peace through economic deals. The United States is moving military assets and spreading war with military. This is what we are seeing at this point in time. We see Russia is saying, you know something? We're going to begin our inspections for Greece, Hungary, India, and Cyprus. We're going to look at the quality of their fruits, vegetables. And we're doing this because we might lift the embargo for these countries. Cyprus said, oh, we need a little bit more time, so they're going to inspect Cyprus next week. And we can see right now about 24 companies in Greece will be tested, the same number in Hungary, and 4 or 5 in India. So it looks like Russia is getting ready to do something very, very soon. Now, what's very interesting is that we know the U.S. government, the central bankers, are basically trying to get rid of the Constitution. They're trying to teach our children something different from what our founding fathers wanted them to learn. They're rewriting history. They're rewriting the rights of the people. And we see Russia is out there actually quoting the founding fathers of the United States. Russia's Prime Minister said Russia is reluctant to take on a big debt burden and cited Benjamin Franklin to explain why. One of the stabilizing factors is a moderate debt burden. We have to maintain this competitive advantage. This opinion is shared by all analysts, he said. In particular, it is important to boost investment and labor productivity. Only then, with those tasks in mind, can we achieve economic growth in the midterm perspective. He also stressed the importance of boosting budget spending, quoting Benjamin Franklin, "Buy what thou hast no need of, and ere long thou shalt sell thy necessities." It's amazing that another country is looking at what the founding fathers of the United States wanted and using it in their country. And here in the United States, what is our government, what are our leaders, if you want to call them that, doing? They're violating our rights. They're violating the Constitution. They're violating what the founding fathers, what they really wanted here in the United States. It's mind-boggling. Now, out in Venezuela, we understand the U.S. government would love to get into that country, just like they've gotten into the Middle Eastern countries, into Ukraine. Venezuela has a lot of oil. They'd love to take over that country, put in a puppet regime, put their oil using the dollar, and it would prop up the system for a little longer. And we see Venezuela right now. The United States has imposed sanctions on companies and people, and we see they're having a very tough time economically. And Venezuela is doing what any other nation does when they're under sanctions. They make barter deals. And we see Uruguay has offered to give Venezuela food in exchange for oil. Uruguay has established a permanent flow of trade and exports with Venezuela because there's little availability of money in this country. As a result, they will offer exports of rice, dairy products, and chicken in exchange for Venezuelan petroleum. We see Iran doing the same thing. We see Syria doing the same thing. We see Russia doing the same thing right now because they're under sanctions. We saw Cuba do this for a very long time, and we have to remember, Obama is continually telling us that sanctions don't work. We had sanctions on Cuba for 50 years, and they just don't work, and this is why we have to remove them. And at the same time, he's placing sanctions on every other country. So how can you take him seriously? You can't. It makes no sense in what they're talking about anymore. We understand out in Ukraine, Crimea's water, it was shut off. Kiev blocked it, trying to put the pressure on Russia, Crimea, and the Russian Defense Ministry units have fully restored the supply of fresh water to the southeastern Crimea. The area experienced water shortages after Kiev shut off the supply of water. Russia laid pipelines delivering fresh water to the population to date. The Russian military laid about 14 pipelines with a total length of about 212 kilometers. As of this month, the volume of fresh water delivered to the Black Sea Peninsula has exceeded 150,000 cubic meters. So they're not dependent on Ukraine anymore. Ukraine's Prime Minister, Yatsenyuk, is looking at Ukraine and saying, you know something? Ukraine is ready to resume the work of the banking sector in Donetsk and Lugansk in eastern Ukraine. It's amazing how these government officials / central bankers only think of one thing. Now, we have people in the southeastern area of Ukraine suffering. Ukraine has blocked all aid to this area. People need food, they need medical supplies, but the first thing they think of is, hey, we're going to control the banking system in this area. Not, hey, let's remove the blockade. Hey, let's bring in humanitarian aid. We'll help out. Instead, they're shelling the area and they're thinking about banking. Period. The end. This is how you know they have no allegiance to people or a country. They have allegiance to their banking system. It's almost like it's a cult. Just like they're trying to tell us that everyone that's in the new media, alternative media, they're starting a little cult. Well, actually, the banking system, if you really look at it, is like a cult. East Ukraine rebels have been charged by Ukraine as using white phosphorus, and basically white phosphorus is illegal. And what we're seeing is that Ukraine, Kiev, is using propaganda. They set up a whole entire propaganda arm, and now they're pushing it out. We see that they're saying that the rebels have used white phosphorus, and they have photos of this. But when you look at these photos, it was actually, at the point in time, it was taken back in 2014, and the white phosphorus was what they were using on the southeastern people. And what they did was they flipped the photo over to make it look like it was completely different, and it was actually the rebels using it. This is all propaganda. It's manipulated. They're pushing it out as evidence, and it really isn't evidence. It's propaganda. This is what they are using. This is why they shut down thousands of websites. This is why they kicked out reporters, because they couldn't control the propaganda in Ukraine. We see the head of Russian delegation to PACE is saying Europe is tired of Ukraine. Ukraine was considered by the European Union a state that has carried out a democratic revolution and is rapidly moving towards Europe. But now they see that there has been no democratic revolution in Ukraine, and Europe is growing tired. They don't want war because they know where this war is going to lead. Many in Europe are now standing for more active dialogue with Russia. As we can see with France and Germany, they're stuck between the two, the United States central bankers and Russia, and this middle ground where they're looking at, we don't want war, we don't want it on our front lawns, and we see where we're headed, and they're trying to avoid this. But at the same time, we see the United States government central bankers, they want war. They need war. They need it to cover up this economic collapse, and this is why they're pushing so hard. This is why with the Minsk II agreement, which states there can be no foreign troops in Ukraine, all we see are foreign troops. They can call them advisors, they can call them whatever they want. They are troops. They are completely ignoring the Minsk II agreement, bringing in troops. They don't care. Their agenda, their goal, is to take Ukraine by force. And if they can't, they will start a war with Russia. The same goal in the Middle East. Get into Iran, take out Assad. Any way they possibly can. The tactics might change, but the goal is always the same. Now, Putin is out there. He is warning Israel against a possible supply of lethal weapons to Ukrainian government. Again, we have to remember, Russia said they were going to supply Iran. They lifted the ban of the S-300 surface-to-air missile. And, of course, Israel does not like this because now they have a defensive system. But it doesn't matter because the United States is saying that we can go in there at any time and bomb them. And, of course, this is all being done during a peace, during the P5+1 peace talks, which makes no sense whatsoever. So our government is split and being controlled by different entities at this time. There's part of it being controlled by the central bankers, part of it being controlled by Israel, and there are other entities inside controlling the agendas. And this is why the government right now is not cohesive, they're not making sense, and they're all going off in their own direction. Actually, this is a sign of a government collapsing. This is what we are seeing right now. Because they're not together. They're not doing it for the people. They don't have a common cause, which is the United States and the people of the United States. They're in it for themselves. They're in it for whoever pays them the most. This is a major, major sign of a collapsing government. Now we can see that NATO is continually pushing their agenda, telling the world that Russia is getting ready to invade. This is why we need more military assets. This is why we need more weapons. This is why we have to increase the budget. And if you really look, The S&P Aerospace and Defense Index stood at 2,400 points on January 20th, 2009, when Obama was inaugurated, and is at 8,692 as of April 17th, 2015. That's 3.55 times what it was at the start. The S&P 500 index on January 20th, 2009 was 805 points. Today, it's at 2,081, which is 2.58 times what it was at the start. So during Obama's presidency, thus far, defense stocks have gained 38% more than the total market has. What does that tell you? They're using this fear. They're pushing war for a certain group. And we know this is the industrial war complex. And we understand that all of this is being done for profit. And eventually when the system crashes and falls apart, it will be for war and more profit and to start the system all over again. Now we understand that the United States government central bankers, along with many other countries, are moving military assets, getting prepared, spending a lot of money on weapons. And Russia, China, North Korea, Brazil, Venezuela, Argentina, and many other countries, they all know this. They all know what is coming. They all know that the central banking system, they're going to push war. And they're not going to stop. Every time Putin is out there and he basically stamps out the flame of war, the flame ignites in a different area. I mean, look what happened back in August of 2013 when the U.S. had aircraft carriers, submarines, destroyers, amphibious warships all in the Mediterranean ready to go in to Syria. Well, Putin stepped in. He initiated a peace deal, and that was fanned down and the flame was put out. But we knew the goal was always the same, and we knew their goal is to get rid of Assad. Look at Ukraine. War, war, war. Putin came up with the Minsk I deal. That didn't work out. The flame was reignited. Minsk II, he pushed forth with the help of France and Germany. And again, we see the flame being ignited once again for war. And basically, we see that Ukraine is definitely getting ready for a major offensive with all these soldiers and weapons inside the country. And since all these countries understand that war is coming, they're beefing up their military assets. We see that Russia is using their S-400 missile defense system, and they're deploying it to Russia's far eastern areas. The new generation weapons with a range of up to about 400 kilometers can bring down small planes and nuclear-charged ballistic missiles. They're also selling their old S-300 systems, and they're also now selling their S-400 systems to countries like China. There are other countries that are looking to get their hands on the S-300, or better yet, the S-400, and those countries are Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and others who are looking to get these type of weapons in their country. We see that in Yemen, the Yemeni general who is loyal to Hadi is saying that, yes, we have thousands of people joining our cause and we're going to push back the Houthis. Well, I don't believe this is actually happening, because all the reports and all the indicators that we see is that the people of Yemen are getting angrier, and more of the factions inside Yemen are now joining the Houthi movement. Now, the Houthi leaders in Yemen, they are calling on all factions to join their cause. And they're saying that we should all band together to push out the foreign invaders, the foreign aggressors. And he's talking about Saudi Arabia and the United States and any other nation that is fighting inside the country. And the Houthis are, one of their militia leaders, they're out there saying, and this is coming from Abdelmalik al-Houthi, he's saying that Saudi Arabia, their main objective is to basically occupy Yemen. And I can see this right now, where they would like to bring in Saudi troops, bring in U.S. troops, keep them in Yemen, put Hadi back into place, but all of this will report to Saudi Arabia at this point in time to keep control of Yemen. We see that Saudi Arabia was bombing all different areas in Yemen, which they're continually doing, and we see there was an airstrike on an Army Scud missile depot in the suburbs of Yemen, in the capital city. And basically the people there, their houses were smashed, windows were blown out, children were terrified, and people fainted because of the blast. It was so hard that they just fainted. And right now the corporate media, U.S. government, the Saudi coalition, they're saying that they have destroyed about 80% of the Houthi weapon storage facilities. And at this same time, we're seeing that basically what's going on in Yemen, the United States is trying to blame on Iran. Secretary of State John Kerry was asked about Iran's involvement in the escalating war in Yemen. His response was astounding and revealing. Iran needs to recognize that the United States is not going to stand by while the region is destabilized or while people engage in overt warfare across lines, international boundaries in other countries, Kerry said. Well, isn't that what the United States is doing? Wait a minute. Isn't that what Saudi Arabia is doing? They went into a country that did not attack them and started to bomb them. Iran is not bombing Yemen or engage in overt warfare. The culprit of the overt warfare is Saudi Arabia, the United States. It was revealing that Kerry ignored the Saudi and Gulf Arab role in the catastrophe unfolding in Yemen. We see that since Iran has warships near Yemen and the United States has warships near Yemen, and Iran is allegedly, according to the United States government central bankers, they're bringing in weapons to the Houthi people. Of course, they have no proof of this. They're just saying it. We see that Navy officials confirm that the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt is headed to Yemeni waters to intercept an Iranian weapons shipment. Now, do they have proof of this? How do they know this? Are they going to board an Iranian ship? Because that is an act of war. Are they going to fire at the Iranian ship? That is an act of war. There are about 9 U.S. ships in the region, including the cruiser and destroyers, carrying teams that can board and search other vessels. We can see this escalating at this point in time. One little accident with the confrontation with the U.S. and Iran could set off World War III. Snap of the fingers, things could go south very, very quickly. There could be maybe an accident where it could kick off the war. This situation in Yemen is very critical because one little thing could set off a chain reaction. Khomeini in Iran is saying that the nuclear weapons in our country is a complete myth. He's saying that the United States is actually the threat, not Iran. They're the ones who are destabilizing and intervening in other countries, removing their governments and placing different governments in their place, which he's absolutely right. We see Iran right now, they're going to trade intelligence with Afghanistan. Iran is going to trade intelligence with Australia. And we understand that the Islamic State is the proxy army for the United States government central bankers. Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Hassan, have received reports that U.S. planes once again visited the Islamic State. And he's out there saying the U.S. shouldn't supply weapons and money to the Islamic State, and then apologize and say, oh, it was a big accident. We didn't realize we were dropping all these weapons and money off to the Islamic State. Basically, what's happening here is the United States is getting caught over and over and over again. I mean, we have enough evidence at this point to say, yeah, you know what? The Islamic State is run and controlled by the U.S. government central bankers. They are used and put into place to create chaos in these regions and to eventually get into Syria and remove Assad. We already see that they're building up the propaganda to get Assad. We see that on 60 Minutes, they brought back the sarin gas attack from August of 2013. And they were showing footage of the children suffering. Of course, this is not evidence of who did it. But of course, as they say, we don't know who did it, but it looks like it was Assad. And they're trying to build the propaganda once again. Because what do they want to do? They want to get into Syria and take out Assad. So they're building up the propaganda, and what does this tell us at this point in time? It means they're going to try something big coming up very, very soon. We see that because of all these cyber attacks that the U.S. is claiming, the U.S. Air Force has been developing a cyber missile. This is a long-range weapon unlike any in the U.S. arsenal. CHAMP, the Counter-Electronic High-Powered Microwave Advanced Missile Project. Basically, unlike kinetic weapons that destroy their targets, the cyber missile would not inflict physical damage on targets. Rather, it is designed to basically send powerful microwaves out that would destroy any nearby computers and bring their systems completely down. So we can see the United States government central bankers, they are getting prepared and ready. And they're creating weapons, new weapons, to bring down the enemy in a split second. This is why the Pentagon is putting together a cyber task force to mess up the computer systems. If that doesn't work, they will use this missile once it's developed and ready to go. We see the fear-mongering on the ISIS camp that is 8 miles away from the Texas border turning out to be propaganda. Turning out that, yeah, this is not true, and it looked like it's false. We know the FBI went down there. I believe they were trying to use this and set something up, maybe for some type of false flag event. The information got out, and the whole thing just fell apart. And we can see that this whole thing now is a complete fake, phony, false story. It's propaganda, and they're trying to clean up the mess at this point in time. We see 6 men arrested in Minnesota. They have been working for almost a year to join ISIS. And again, it's the FBI. We know the track record of the FBI. They set up their patsies. They give them all the information. And right now, the FBI is saying we're having a real problem in Minnesota because there's a lot of terror recruiting. They're bringing back the Sovereign Citizen Uprising report. And DHS is saying it is really growing at a very fast pace. Hundreds of thousands of people are joining the sovereign movement. And of course, they cited about 24 violent sovereign citizen related attacks. And we went over this, and over the 5 years, it was like armed robbery, traffic ticket stop, domestic argument. I mean, they're just reaching for anything they possibly can. Basically, what they're trying to tell everyone is that the people of the United States, those people who do not believe the government anymore, who believe they have the rights, the people that believe in the Constitution, that group of people, that's what's growing. It's almost like them saying that, oh, the Islamic State is reaching 300,000 people, 500,000 people. Actually, what it is, it's the people of these countries who are rising up. The same thing here in the United States. But again, they're using it to convince everyone it's people who don't want to obey the law, it's people who don't want to obey the government. No, we're questioning the government. We don't agree with what they say or what they're telling us. And the movement is growing. It's getting larger and larger, and they're afraid of this. And then they show with their DHS map of where it is growing. And actually, what's very interesting is the movement is in that Jade Helm area of states. I mean, it's in other places, but that's where the bulk is. And we can see, and we know, Jade Helm, there's 2 different phases in it. Round up the potential dissident extraction of those people who are against the government and take away the weapons of those people. And we can see that this is being pushed. They're trying to get it out there. They're trying to convince the American people that this is a problem. But it really isn't a problem. It's a problem for them, not for the American people. Because sooner or later, the people who don't agree with the government, it's going to grow so big, they won't know what to do. They won't know how to handle this. And this is why we see these exercises going on like Jade Helm. Because they need to control the situation now. And this is what they're trying to do. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.